Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Snapshot episode 69. I'm joined by Marvel Snap phenom Cam Best. Cam, this is your time. This is your day. You've been waiting almost a year and a half for this episode. How's it feel?
Nice.
Yeah. How's your week in Marvel Snap been?
I think it's been pretty good. I mean, like, drops mean I'm playing a little bit more than I normally would. But honestly, I've come to the conclusion that this meta is actually just good. I was worried about all the combo stuff last week, but this week, I think it's been pretty clear. Professor X decks and Annihilus decks have risen up out of the muck to punish Hela, punish Phoenix Force, punish Mr. Negative, punish all that stuff. And the meta is actually going in what seems to be like a pretty interesting direction, to the point that I am worried about the release of the card White Widow, where it's like, I feel like right now, I don't know which of these three things did it, and the answer is it's probably all of them. But nuking Thanos, nuking Alioth, reverting Angela. Good meta now. Magically. Out of nowhere. It's been great, right? And now we risk upsetting that gentle equilibrium by giving an already rising to the top of the pack deck a card like White Widow, which is very scary.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about our thoughts on White Widow in our sort of prediction for this week's card releases, and we rated it quite highly. I stepped away from Marvel Snap for a little bit this past week. I was wondering if you could take us back to a segment we did a couple episodes ago, and that was the metagame in 60 seconds. Can you bring me up to date? I know you gave me the macro, but hit a little bit of the micro as well.
No, the macro is the micro, right? Like, there are three major poles of the metagame. Two of them are very well defined. The first is like Angela Soup. So, you're silky smooth, although at this point I've cut the silk and the move from it. So I guess it's not really silky smooth anymore. So these are like your Angela, Elsa, Kitty, Hope, Red Hulk, Shang-Chi, Jeff decks, and you pick like 5 of those cards, and like 5 of those 7, they're going to be in all of these decks, basically. So that's like Loki, that's Shuri Kitty, that's the normal Angela stuff. That is like, I've seen people doing it with the Thor package, Angela Soup, it's its own part of the metagame, right? And then what beats Angela Soup is these combo decks, the smallest of which are Phoenix Force and Hela, the largest of which are like Tribunal, Mr. Negative, things like that. And what beats those decks primarily is the combination of a few cards, and it's hard to really define what this sector of the metagame is. But first, Professor X, and then Annihilus Sentry, and then Cannonball. And so, like, those cards are prominent now in response to Hela, in response to Phoenix Force. Professor X especially, like, just ruins their lives. And Cannonball allows you as a, like, Daredevil Prof X deck to just have, like, the closest thing to Alioth, which gives you game into the Angela decks as well. Further hybridization is still yet to be explored. There are Angela Soup decks playing the Annihilus stuff, Angela Soup decks playing Prof Cannonball. We don't know what the best deck is in that space yet, but that's pretty much the shape of the metagame.
Very succinct. I like it.
How long was that actually?
I wasn't timing.
Gotta be more than 60 seconds.
I was just sitting back and enjoying the ride while you were spitting the truth. I saw that you did a rate the cards YouTube video with Savage.
Yeah.
That's cool because
Lorcana enjoyer.
Yeah, enjoyer.
Savitz, yeah.
That's a really interesting case study. He's a human being, but
what the hell? I guess like that.
It's funny because he guested on for one of my pods that week as well. No, but it's really interesting that he's made that jump over Lorcana to the digital client, because I feel like, I don't know, it's a third party client. There's not that many viewers, but I guess he just likes the game that much. But he kind of has pivoted away from Hearthstone for now, and I guess he is kind of a Lorcana player now. He started YouTube and stuff, but yeah, I really like that guy. He's kind of a phenom too. Like, holy fuck,
right? Well, one of the things he mentioned to me was like he was contracted with Team Liquid for like 10 years, and that comes with like a minimum of streaming hours. And so he, for the first time ever, I think in like February or March, does not have to do that. So he specifically talked about Lorcana like it's his vacation. So to be clear, what's happening here is the rank 1 Lorcana player in the world is treating it like a vacation from his job.
Yeah.
that is what he talked about. I was like, yeah, no, that guy's a polymath. He's been great at everything. Like he has been in this for longer than any of us have known what this is.
Yeah, he played on the MPL as well, the Magic Pro League.
People got so mad at that to the point that the people getting mad at it were more annoying than anything else, and I was rooting for him. Like, I was a fan of him because of that. Like, it was just like all these people are like, oh my god, it sucks. How could they give a spot to a streamer? And it's like,
I know.
Do you guys know what esports is? Like, do you guys know what is trying to be done here? Like, the reaction of the Magic community to like any new people coming into their sport, their spaces is, yeah, I don't know. That definitely soured me on it a little bit, because it's like, I mean, the whole system was extremely ad hoc. If you want to critique things about the MPL, I'll sit here and listen forever, right? I mean, like, I would say my closest friend among people who were in the MPL resigned from the MPL. Like, this is like very straightforward, right?
And that was kind of unheard of too, because the MPL was kind of a good deal, a good gig, right? So when Jerry,
great gig,
yeah.
Yes.
So when Jerry and you're talking about Jerry, I'm assuming when Jerry resigned from that, yeah, I mean, it was looked at. I mean, the MPL, I'm pretty sure from what I remember, you could qualify it, but there was a level of like some people did get invites. Whether it was
no, what happened was they just like they didn't tell anyone that the previous year's like finishes were going to be used for this. So like a bunch of people that like probably would have like done different things had they known that those finishes would qualify them for effectively being paid to be a pro Magic player. And so they just like picked like the top 32 players out of there. It's like, yep, all right, we're good. it's like you can critique a ton of things about them, and I think the inclusion of a guy as good at card games as Savitz and as famous as Savitz and as, you know, generally enjoyable in terms of bringing this game to a more wider market, like that seems like the world's most obvious decision from my end. And Magic players are just like, fuck this guy, and it sucked. Like, it sucked really bad.
Yeah, I know this because I've talked to him a lot, but he definitely didn't enjoy that part of it either too. It was like they were not very nice to him. I want to dig in a little bit to that with that Team Liquid deal. And obviously we're talking about Savitz and he's not here. But how do you feel about that? Would you take a streaming deal like that where you had to stream like a certain number of hours? Well, let's say it's over what you want to stream, like significantly.
Yeah, I mean, like, how much are they paying me? But yeah, probably.
Yeah,
like they don't even do those anymore because I don't think they make money on them. Right? Yeah. Like that's like a deal that's so good the company isn't making money on it sounds fucking phenomenal to me. That sounds like I'm the one getting away with some shit there. You know what I mean? Yes, any day of the week. Hit me up, TL.
That's interesting. I wonder what the economics were, because he had it for 10 years, right? So that's a really long time. So it's just like brand awareness, I guess. Kind of a anecdotal pointer, kind of a adjacent point is I was tune into Caleb Dirtward's stream. I think that's his last name. I could be mispronouncing it, Magic player, and he always has the bizarre that game, the Tempo Storm, the guy, you know, that guy Raynad, that game that he's making for like 10 years. I am technically waiting on that game, but the last time I looked at a dev blog, it was like they switched to like PvE or something.
Raynad like went on Twitch and started talking about how like the devil was mind controlling people or something. I didn't really watch the full clip. Why is that so
common nowadays, man?
But like all I'm saying is like people give Raynad shit. I want to age into being Raynad. I want to take the fact that I was good at a card game once and just age that into like inexplicable amounts of VC cash and me being crazy on the internet. I want that so bad. I have like people. I don't think people get how much that guy won.
Yeah,
like,
well, it brings up actually a really good question, and just like a strategy for being a content creator, a streamer, full time, anything like that is like, how do you actually win? How do you come out the end like actually winning? How do you not be the person? Oh, and I don't say this to be mean, but how do you not be the person that's, you know, maybe 15 years deep, 10 years deep, and you're being forced to write articles for a game that you don't care about, that doesn't have an audience, and it's like you don't want to be there. So like, how do you basically do the Raynad thing?
You do what Raynad did.
Yeah, but how do you do that?
Well, I mean, you get very lucky, but like you get very lucky. You get in on the ground floor. You start a brand that offers something. That brand gets injected in a world of 0% interest rates with a lot of VC money, and then you just, you know, develop a game for 10 years. That's the dream. He's literally living the dream. Like, people are going to think I'm like clowning on Raynad, and like, absolutely not. Like, I genuinely think that probably more than anyone in that early Hearthstone scene, that guy won.
Yeah. 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 I guess we could just create a card game. We could
has that ever actually worked? Has any content creator been like, I'm going to go make a card game, and then it wasn't terrible? Has that ever worked?
Maybe, but here's my pitch. Is we make it, it's going to be a digital game, but we make it collectible, and we make it so if you own the collectible pieces, you can farm booty coin while you play.
Oh, okay. Shit. Yeah. No. All right. There you go. Solid.
Hey, you said VC money, baby.
Yeah, we're back to the NFT conversation, right? I get it.
In regards to content creator that made a card game that didn't suck.
Has it ever happened?
I'm sure it's happened, but...
Name one.
I don't know. That's the problem. Let us know in the comments, I guess. All right, for Ep69, we actually have big news. Big news. We're back to Marvel Snap. Big news.
Is that the big news?
Yeah.
That we're back to Marvel Snap, that we're talking about the game that we talk about?
We're coming back.
Yeah.
We have merch. And it was inspired by all of you. But there is we have a call to action for y'all. So the merch is going to be a black t-shirt.
You know, you're not supposed to say we have a call to action when you're doing the call to action.
I'm trying to rally my people, okay? It's going to have the Snapshot logo on the right and on the back. Let me manipulate my hands. So if you can see our video, it's going to say my favorite, and then in quotations, something X podcast, and then it's going to be a vertical column down with all the different entries of my favorite whatever podcast. So if you want to influence what is on the back of that t-shirt, comment your favorite or your bests my favorite X podcast on this week's YouTube video, and we're going to get it on the back of that t-shirt. For the person, one of you who gets your entry put on the back of the t-shirt, you get a free shirt. We'll give it to you for free.
Absolutely. Do I get a free shirt?
Yeah, you do get a free shirt. Actually, you've only been here for 69 weeks, but I think we could swing it.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
We could swing it. All right. What else in the news? I'm not sick, which is pretty incredible. Finally, I feel
he coughed like 10 times before we started recording this. Like, he is absolutely still sick. He's just like, I'm not sick.
A little bit of residuals. Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, so what's funny is I played a physical TCG today. I played a tournament. I had some people asking me about Marvel Snap.
Playing a physical TCG, that is hilarious.
Dude, it is physically exhausting too. I sweat my actual ass off during the tournament, and I feel like I dropped like 5-6 pounds of water weight alone.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. It's
solid.
It's an effort for me. But
get cut playing card games.
People were asking me. I also smell. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Oh yeah, that's so abnormal for a physical TCG player.
I blend right in, I guess.
Yeah.
I had people ask me about Marvel Snap. I just wanted to share with y'all like the pitch that I give for the game, the positive pitch, not the. But what I tell them is that I feel like, and you probably heard me talk about this on the podcast. You've been here for a long time, but I feel like physical TCGs, like it is ultimately deck versus deck, and players just kind of deviate from the perfect game. Like it's not a lot of nuance, and I genuinely don't feel like you actually play against your opponent, because you are just. Like your opponent is just kind of making mistakes. Ultimately, you're trying to play against their deck, and then you have an imperfect pile in front of you. Marvel Snap, in my opinion, is the only card game that I played where you actually play against your opponent. I feel like they have like a legitimate sort of add, like a value add to the game experience, and that their persona highly contextualizes some of the plays that they will make and how they interact with the game. And I think it's fascinating because of that. And it's also a card game. You also have like value oriented plays, like optimal lines, things like that. But yeah, Marvel Snap is very special in my opinion because you actually play against your opponent. That's my pitch.
I was thinking that the pitch would be, what if you couldn't pay for power? What if everyone had to...
Remember how Magic used to be in 93?
Remember unique collections?
So like...
What if that?
What if your opponent plays a card and you just can't buy it? You just can't buy it. How fun would that be? Wait, what? Ben, that sounds like shit. What? No, don't worry. We'll let you gamble on the cards. Every week we'll put one in a box and you can try to roll for it. It's just like, yeah, unique collections. Probably the weakest original design point of Marvel Snap, I think, at this point.
I think it's just like, maybe it would work for a game that was worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I kind of get the sense with Snap that they just did not expect it to be as big or as good as it was. And so they ended up releasing a game that was designed to be like, oh, you know, throwaway mobile game, casual, having fun, you know, just, and they actually just accidentally made like the best card game ever. And so now there's like a bunch of sweaty turbo nerds like me who are fucking like hyper analyzing the shit and making them make a leaderboard and doing all this dumb shit that they were not prepared to deal with. And really it's our fault, right? For being spikes.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that just in the modern age, in the digital age, like everything is very meta at this point. And yeah, I mean, just the age of information, and you can't really have those information asymmetries you had maybe back in the early days of Magic. Magic also had the added on sort of context that people just didn't understand card games, so they couldn't evaluate cards in a similar way. And you had people that probably disagreed and fundamentally believed in what they were disagreeing on. Nowadays, that happens, but it is much clearer, sort of like, there's a much smaller sample set of like the argument of like what is actually the best and what is good, because it's kind of clear. It is much clearer, like, what is bad, because people can effectively do the math and call into sort of past heuristics and sort of card game theory. But yeah, in the age of information, like, I don't know, I'm just going to honestly, I'm going to go on x.com. X.com.
Gross. You're going on twitter.com. It'll redirect you to x.com.
I'm going to go to @KMBest. It's going to be Sunday afternoon.
KM Best is actually a girl named Catherine who I apologize for all the times that has happened to you.
Well, you should Google Brendan Patrick and see who ranks #1 on Google SEO and get back to me. I'm going to look up KMBest MS and I'm going to get the top decks and I'm just going to net deck you. Don't Google it, by the way, if you're doing that.
I did Google it. It's a magician.
No, that's not my Google searches. Maybe I was cookied or something.
I Googled Brendan Patrick and I got a magician named Brendan Patrick.
Okay, for me, maybe I passed him up, but back in the day, the #1 Google SEO Brendan Patrick was an adult film star.
Oh, I see that guy too.
Yeah.
But like right now, I Googled Brendan Patrick. I got you and I got the magician.
Well, the other one's a bit of a magician too, apparently.
He's a wizard with it. Hold on. I want to revert to something before we get bogged down in magic tricks, right? One of the key things about card games on the playground that like people are trying to harken back this nostalgia to, right? Like, and I think this really does get lost, is that when you're on the playground, you're a fucking child.
Yeah.
You can't get that back. You can't, like, all of this stuff is like nostalgia market is like, hey, remember when you were a kid, but like fundamentally,
you were
remember
dumb?
when you were fucking stupid? Remember when you were an idiot? Yeah, now we're going to give you a system that now you're not an idiot. You know that it sucks. Like, that's like what you're really missing is being a child. That's what you're missing. You're not missing unique collections. You're missing being a child and, you know, maybe to a greater degree, having friends. Like, that's the thing you're missing about the playground there, dude.
Monkey's out of the box, bro. You can't put the monkey back in the box. Like,
yeah,
we've played with fire. You can't go back. Well, speaking of nostalgia, I went to this random game store like north of me, like 30 minutes north of me in like Denton. And I walked in, it was this small game store and they had the wooden walls. They had like the old D&D. They had a roller TV that, you know, they used to do in like, I don't know if you had those in school.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a time capsule. I just walked in and immediately was like, this place owns. This place freaking owns.
I mean, that might not have been my reaction. My local game store, as I recall, like the last time I had a local game store, I should say, that I like actually went to. There were two in the city, and I want to say this like, you know, 2012, 2013. One of them just didn't have air conditioning. Like, just this is the South. Just didn't have air conditioning, and it's like, are you guys real?
Have you ever been to? Can I introduce you to Western Europe?
They don't have air conditioning anywhere though.
Like Eastern is a little bit better. Yeah.
No, but like you go to like Britain and it's just like there's no air conditioning anywhere.
Well, Britain's not as bad. Go to France. It's so hot. It's insane.
I mean, this is a little bit like frou-frou, right? Oh, the air conditioning in France. There's no air conditioning. I can't deal with it.
Hey, it's actually ridiculous. Like, it is actually crazy hot. They told me.
I'm talking about like fucking podunk bullshit southern towns, and you're like, yeah, what about Paris, motherfucker?
I'm talking about that too, actually, because this is actually it's a small French town outside of Lille. But yeah, no, it's
is that
crazy.
Supposed to make you sound less aristocratic?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Apparently, Europe has actually started to heat up. Because global warming or whatever the kids say. So like now it's actually getting hot enough that I think some places in Europe are starting to starting to adopt the technology of air conditioning.
I'm glad we could bring them into the 18th century.
Yeah,
like I don't know how old air conditioning is. It's probably not that old. It's electricity, right? But it is unbelievable to me that people in a so-called first world country live without air conditioning. Of course, this will inevitably trigger any British listeners we have to be like, it's unbelievable to me that you live without, socialized healthcare or gun laws. And you know what? That is also unbelievable to me. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But if you are going to be the more civilized place, which I think you could argue you are, I mean, maybe not Britain, but, like the rest of Europe, I think you could make the argument. The least you could do is have air conditioning too. It's weird that we have something you don't. That's what I'm getting at, right? Where it's like, the point I'm making here is this. Get air conditioning.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it was point taken. Yeah, point understood. I don't know how anybody could have gotten that mixed up. You said it in such a delicate way.
It was very clear.
Yeah,
very clear. Yeah.
All right, Red Guardian 3/3 on reveal. Afflict the lowest power enemy card here with -2 power and remove its text. This is a card that we rated pretty lowly. How has it played out for you?
I think it's just good. Where it's like, this is a good card. TM, capital G, capital C. And at the same time, it's like a luxury purchase. Where it's like, what's going to happen is over the next 2 months, you're going to see a decent amount of Red Guardian in streamer decks. Because it's just going to be like a best in slot option for like whenever you just need a card. But every streamer is going to tell you the same thing. And it's that you don't need Red Guardian to play this deck. And so it's like, it's in a really weird spot. Where it's like, I can see this card having a cannonball-like trajectory. Where everyone's down on it and then it gets better. But I wonder if it's worth picking up outside of the context of like, this card is really good, but there's a lot of like archetype staples. You're not picking this up before like Century Annie. You're probably not picking this up before Cannonball. You're probably not picking this up before like High Evolutionary. You're probably not picking this up before Red Hulk. There's just a bunch of stuff. Hope, Elsa, Kitty, all of which is more important to the decks being able to function than Red Guardian. Yeah. And so it ends up being just like, this is a good card that might be a best in slot card, but it's very unlikely to be required as the core part of a strategy.
Do you think this card scales well into the future?
Yeah, it just seems pretty good. Like right now, it's just like it's a you can nuke an Angela machine that is also a 3/5 that is also sometimes like blowing up a Cerebro or an Iron Man or a Ravona or just like some good stuff, right? Like it's mostly just like, hey, this is 3/5 that like sometimes I'll win the game because of it.
Yeah,
that's really good. It's just a really good card.
I think so too. I think that, I mean, even if it's not best in slot right now, like if it's just good and fits into some decks, I think that it seems like a fine card to potentially pick up. Now, it wouldn't be a primary pickup, honestly, for me, it might not even be a pickup, because like I said, dude, I'm shaking that ass for these fucking tokens out here, bro.
You're a broke boy now.
It's tough. So I'm like picking up staples. I'm picking up staples.
I'm gonna tell that to everyone in the small city outside of Lille you visit.
Oh God. It was quaint. It was quaint. It was warm, but it was quaint.
Sure.
Hey, I was there for card games. Into the Bend and Snap. If you want to get your question read out on next week's podcast, you should just comment on YouTube. There's 112 comments last episode, so thank you.
They were like all. This is my favorite blank podcast, and then there was one guy who asked if I hated white males. To which I have to say, yes. 100% unequivocally, that is my official stance. That's why I do a podcast with one, and also am one, and just a very complicated expression of hatred.
There was some that were not. This is my favorite podcast, but they were hard to find. I was definitely do a needle in a haystack for these, but I found some. First one is from Zoe. They say, it's my favorite. Holy shit. I didn't even mean to do that.
Read it.
My favorite, in quotations, my enjoyment of the show is inversely proportional to the amount of time you spend talking about Marvel Snap podcast. I mean, that's just the most ridiculous thing anybody's ever wrote.
The less we talk about Snap, the more you like it, correct?
Yes.
That better be true, because like we don't do that anymore. We've devolved entirely.
I feel like we talk a lot about Snap. I really do. Just sometimes, we branch out a bit. Next one is from Gokar. They say, me seeing the length of the episode. Oh, God, it's another one. Wow, I'm so excited to consume nearly 2 hours of Marvel Snap content. Me an hour in. I am a fool.
Oh my God. What does it feel like getting like just you actually click a 2-hour podcast? You're like, I want to listen to Marvel Snap content, and you click on us. Tough.
Well, bait and switch. All right, next one is from Techie. Say, moving your opponent's card can work, but it would need to work like Daredevil, where you can move the cards before your opponent's turn. I actually didn't think about that. I talked about they would have to put in a whole new like sort of function into the game. I guess it already kind of exists with Daredevil.
Wait, what do you mean moving your opponent's card?
So we were talking about like some move cards or something. We're like, oh, would you ever make a card that you can move your opponent's card? We're like, would that work? Because it's simultaneous turns.
Isn't that just Polaris?
Oh, no, it means like, click and dragging it or something.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't click. Yeah.
But you can, because apparently it's coded in with like Daredevil and stuff. So I think it would work.
You'd have to give them Daredevil info, though, right? So it would have to be Daredevil plus the ability to move stuff, which sounds like an insane card.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That sounds super messed up and super complex. And I would bet money that unless this game goes like 6 years and really needs ideas, that one is not happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Next question, not Josh. Kind of sounds like this is Josh. Trying to catch up after a break is such a hassle that I'm dealing with right now. I skipped a little bit of the past few seasons. Now I feel so far behind without cards like Mockingbird and Cannonball and Pixie and stuff. Well, you have to worry about Pixie.
I think you actually do have to worry about Pixie.
You have to worry about Pixie now?
Pixie's good now. There were 2 Pixie decks on my tier list.
Oh, shit.
A lot of the Century Anni Prof Cannonball decks are Pixie.
Okay. I also feel far behind. I'm channeling my inner not Josh.
Yeah. You remember when we had Glenn on and he was like, we missed low on Pixie? I don't think they did. I think it just took some time.
Okay.
Like, I think that if they buff that card now, that would be a mistake. Like, that is actually just like a good card. But I think, hold on, can you reread the question? Something in there piqued me and I wanted to go off on a rant. And I wanted to make sure, I have exactly the question in mind
just to clarify, it's not a question, it's a statement. So trying to catch up after a break is such a hassle that I'm dealing with right now. I skipped a little bit of the past few seasons. Now I feel so far behind with like cards like Mockingbird, Cannonball, and Pixie and stuff.
Okay. So one of the things that I've noticed, and it has become very apparent to me recently, is that since the Blob nerf, they have not had to nerf any new cards. They just haven't had to do it. Like, you could argue, they had to nerf Meek, but it's like, well, they buffed him first. It's a net buff, right? Mm-hmm. They have not had to nerf any new cards. They have not been like, this new card that we just put out is getting nerfed. And it's like, well, when you think about the previous 4 months, you had Loki, Elsa, Miss Marvel, Blob, Werewolf, Mobius. That's like 6 in 4 months that were just like, we have to do something about this. And in the next 4 months, I don't think a single one has. Now, obviously, that's like not sustainable, right? But one of the things that I think they've done is gotten way better at riding right up to that line. Because it's not like they're making less good cards. They're just like right on the line of like, oh man, this is problematic, right? Hope Summers, Red Hulk. God, I just realized they nerfed the Nihilist too. Like they really went through those new cards. Like, wow, that's a lot of stuff they nerfed in a very short period of time after it released. Am I wrong about that? Like, have they nerfed anything from recent seasons? Has anything been nerfed?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And when you think about that, it's like kind of shocking, right? Like we're in the middle of April. We've had
Okay.
5 cards a season. They've released like 18 cards. Not one of them has had to be nerfed at all.
All right.
And then in the previous 18 cards, a third of them had to get nerfed within that 4-month period.
So my question is, extrapolate. Read between the lines. What does that mean?
That's not even where I'm going with this. I don't want to read between the lines because that's not even where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this is those cards getting nerfed made it easier to catch up as long as you didn't invest in them. Now you come back and it's like all those cards never got nerfed and you need all of them. There are 6 cards right now that just came out. Like when we talk about how good Cannonball is at best the 3rd or 4th best card in the last 7 weeks, right? Hope Summers clearly better. Red Hulk probably better. I think the hard one to rate when it comes to Cannonball is Mockingbird because she was better, but they nuked everything around her. And I think that's actually the closest you could argue for a new card actually getting nerfed. But Mockingbird and Cannonball, they're right there, right? Peak Mockingbird was obviously better than all of that stuff, but she's no longer there anymore. And so you have Cannonball there, and it's then there's Pixie. That's a really good card. And we're just talking 5 really good cards out of the last, 7? Out of the last 7 cards or so, 7, 8, 9, you really want 5 of them. And because they're not getting nerfed, these cards, because they're basically what I'm saying is they're getting better at their job. They're releasing less dumb, broken stuff. And that means there's more stuff you have to buy.
Do you think that, what do you think about just series dropping those cards?
I obviously think that anything that makes the game cheaper is good. Do we think that's going to happen?
I don't know. Maybe. Because, of course, there's an equilibrium. I'm not going to bring back. We talked about it last podcast, but of course, there's an equilibrium point where, there's a more sustainable model where more people can engage with the game and they make a higher profit because there's a bigger community.
Yeah, it's possible they have their analysis wrong. But assuming they don't, then no, I don't really expect that, right? Because those are the exact kind of cards you want to keep in Series 5. You want that's the thing. You want Series 5 cards to feel worth 6,000 tokens. Yeah. And I gotta tell you, they've done a pretty fucking good job of that. There are a lot of things that are worth your money right now, to the point that we are, for probably the first time ever, in a situation where there are probably too many things that are worth your money.
Yeah.
That's rare. And a lot of that comes from nerfing Thanos, who was definitely holding a lot of shit back. And he was a very easy first purchase and doing all of that. But because they are no longer releasing these cards in insanely messed up situations, there's no longer just this is so obviously broken, we have to do something about it. They're just very good. We end up in a spot where there are if every new card comes out very good, and a lot of them end up relevant, you kind of have to get them. And that's not sustainable for a free-to-play player, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. Well,
it's better.
On the bright,
it's better.
On the bright side.
Isn't it better? Is it better?
Well, on the bright side, I do own all of those cards.
Sure. But I think it's better in the sense that if you invested in the card, you're not getting robbed, right? Because they don't do refunds. So it's probably better in aggregate. But it does create this feeling that there's just so far to go. And the second thing I wanted to mention is TLSG is in the same situation as this commenter.
Really?
Yeah, he's just coming back to the game.
What made him take a break, do you know?
I do not know. I've talked to him a little bit, but I don't want to talk about it publicly.
Okay, I didn't know if it was he didn't like the game anymore and then he came back. So if it's something else, whatever.
I do not know.
Okay.
And I talked to him a little bit about the decks he was thinking about playing. I didn't want to pollute his thought process, so I wanted to see what it was like him coming back and try to figure it out on his own. So I didn't want to be these are the decks I would play in your position. But I will say that he named 3 decks, and it was yep, those were the decks I would recommend you. He did kind of correctly evaluate the situation. It's not that people act like it's oh, you have to have Angela Hope to play the game. And I don't think that's true. But if you don't want to play Phoenix Force or Hela or something, and you want to play this mid-range style, you probably do need either the Angela package, Pixie, Cannonball, Annihilus, some combination of those cards, right? And so when you think about that, it's almost like they're gating certain play styles, right? You can play discard or destroy cheap, but you can't play Angela cheap. You can't play Pixie, Mobius, Annihilus, Sentry cheap. And it's like, that's an interesting thing to do. And by interesting, I actually mean interesting. I haven't fully thought it through. I don't mean it like as I actually mean bad by this. That's not what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll circle back on that. Next one is from Cyber. They say, this is my favorite booty coin farming podcast. Excellent episode. Right. Yep. Very, very crypto bullish podcast here. Next one is from Juan. They say, mailbag. Patrick is actually right.
Patrick.
Excuse me. Sorry, I was coughing if I was muted there. I actually have multiple wrestling medals with Patrick Brendan on them. That's like Patrick
like
first
no
name.
comma, just like Patrick Brendan.
First name Patrick, last name Brendan.
Right.
Yeah, because that makes sense.
I mean, you do have two first names.
It is true. You can never trust. You can never trust somebody with two first names.
You definitely do have two first names.
Said Patrick is actually right. To not spend too much money, you have to complete the missions every single day. I don't play other free to play games, so my question is: how does Marvel Snap monetization compare with other free to play games? For example, how does it compare with Magic: The Gathering Arena or Hearthstone?
Okay, so I don't have enough experience with recent Hearthstone. Straight up. Magic Arena did this thing where they have like a system where you earn wild cards from packs, and then the wild cards can be converted at the rate of rarity. So like an uncommon can be converted into an uncommon card, a rare can be converted into a rare. And the entire time I played Arena, the number one gate was rare wild cards,
not mythic.
Because not the mythic, which is the highest rarity. It was always rare because like you'd play like a multicolored deck and every land was a rare, and then like half the cards you run that are cards were a rare, and so you'd have like this deck is 42 rare wild cards, and you're just like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. And at the time, as far as I can tell, there's no way to actually make that happen. I kind of think that Marvel Snap is more free-to-play friendly and more budget-friendly than MTG Arena. That is my take.
That's bold.
That said, Marvel Snap is way better at tricking you into spending money. Like, oh my god, they're so much better at it. MTG Arena is not good at making you feel like you're getting anything out of your money. Marvel Snap is so good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So the one thing you can do in Magic as well is if you like playing limited formats, you can do something called draft.
Right.
So when a new set comes out, you can play draft, which is a whole other format where you play with cards out of like sealed packs. And you can acquire a bit of a collection there. And I think if you get duplicates, they become wild cards of whatever duplicate you have.
Yeah.
That's a reasonable way to go about it. Ultimately, I think that there is a lot of tension in the Magic: The Gathering Arena card acquisition because of those rare wild cards. Like, it is such a bottleneck and it is such a pain in the butt. Hearthstone. So again, both Cam and I haven't played Hearthstone for a while, but Hearthstone, from the top. So the most basic thing is you buy packs. You can buy them in bundles, but you get cards. When you get duplicates, you get dust, but you can also disenchant your cards. So you can actually like sell your card back for half of its value in dust. Like, this currency can be used on everything, and then you can just like buy cards straight up with that dust. So it's a pretty friendly-ish system. The idea is like it's a rotating format. So when the set's rotating out, if you don't want to play the eternal format called Wild, you could just dust everything, and then you kind of roll it into the next set. That being said, you're getting half the value when you dust it, so you're going to have to put more money in. Also, I don't know about Magic, but like, at least my experience in Hearthstone is, for free to play, there was really not a lot of options when I played. It was like you were going to pay to play. Yeah, and Marvel Snap is not that. Marvel Snap is very free to play friendly.
I think the thing with Snap that makes it unfriendly is that you cannot spend infinite. Well, you can spend infinitely. Right? Like, that would be the thing, right? Like, you can spend $1,000 in Marvel Snap and not have every card you want, right? And I don't think that's true of the other two games. I think if you did that in the other two games, you would probably have every card you wanted. I can't say for sure, but I'm fairly certain that would work.
Mhm.
In Snap, it's gated behind, like, they mixed their progression system so that it's gated behind time and expense. So if you're willing to take the time and buy the battle pass every month, you can probably have a full collection free to play, or at least a meta relevant collection free to play.
Yeah.
I have a moderator who's hit rank 1 who does that. He buys the battle pass every season, has since beta. That's it. And very good. And it's very easy to do, or not necessarily very easy to do, but like, it's a thing you can do, right? It's probably the optimal way to play this game. You can also try to spend way more money than you should to get past the time gate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Snap really loses people, I think. Because you can spend $1,000 zooming past that time gate and you'll still be missing shit. And that sucks.
Yeah, that's spot on for sure. That is 100% spot on. So when I played Hearthstone, the idea of being free to play and playing like high level constructed was like a complete joke. Like I didn't really know anybody that did that, and I like it was just like not a thing you did. Where in Marvel Snap, that's well, okay, we can say like semi free to play. You're buying the battle pass. Like even Hearthstone didn't really have that. They have battle passes now, but I don't know how much value you get out of them. Like totally reasonable in Marvel Snap. But Hearthstone, it was like a freaking grind to get like the crumbs of a collection going from like the quests and shit. Like it was terrible.
Yeah, they were not very good at it at the time, but as I understand it, they have gotten better about that. That's why I didn't want to speak on Hearthstone. Like I honestly have no idea, because I think all the things they've done to improve the experience of free to play and returning players have been after I stopped playing. So I can't speak to it.
All right, next one's from Saint. They said, while I never liked Eliath, I was kind of sad seeing it gone completely.
I wasn't. I think it's awesome. Priority is so cool now. It's not just like this one binary thing being enforced on you by the existence of this card. Priority is cool now. And I think people like really started like getting in their own heads. Like, I think there's this thing that happens where like what'll happen is the community will theory craft a thing and then they'll pretend that it's true. Like Marvel Snap, it feels like the Snap community really likes gaslighting itself. Because like I'll still see people say things like Eliath was preventing turn 6 explode strategies from being good. It's like, fucking look around. Where are those? Like, what the fuck is doing that shit that wasn't good when Eliath was here? Eliath is preventing that from being good? What are we talking about here? Eliath is what's stopping Hitmonkey? No, Hitmonkey is what's stopping Hitmonkey. Oh, I'm just gonna throw priority all the time. That's not a thing. It's not a thing. No one does that. Like, I don't know. It's possible it's underexplored, but at least right now, I think saying that had that effect is like just ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed. All right, next one's from an unsought thought. They said, I learned a long time ago that Second Dinner will never improve their monetization. Anytime they've added something good, they take away something good to even it out. For example, gold and token acquisition has been slowed to a crawl since they gave us Spotlights, which has its own problems even when it's not bugged. They confirmed that they will return with the series jobs. Personally, I don't think it makes much of a difference unless they increase token acquisition without changing token prices or lowering token prices.
I mean, it kind of depends on what you mean by make a difference, doesn't it? Like, I do think that we can reasonably see that, like, they're probably not going to make any huge changes to the way in which things are being spent right now. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to be like, it's suddenly cheaper for you to free to play all this stuff. That's probably not happening. You're probably not going to get, like, more than one card free to play a month, right? That's probably going to be how it is. I am like, that feels like they think that's their equilibrium point. Mm-hmm. And I think that has remained fairly constant throughout all of this. Now, where they can make improvements, I think returning players is a big one. I think that wasn't really an issue, but now this game is in like year 2, right? Like you have to start thinking about things like that. I think that early game players, that's another big one. Like making sure people who pick the game up are in a good spot, making sure people who return to the game are in a good spot. But I think, honestly, it's become clear that, you know, they don't want you to free to play, have all the cards you want. That doesn't make them any money. They don't want that, right? If you can free to play and have all the cards you want, well, what's the point? Because their job is to make all the cards you want. So that would mean that you're free to playing all the cards, right? I don't expect them to ever like increase token acquisition or anything like that, because tokens, I think, first of all, they suck, and probably like I don't even think they should necessarily exist right now. Like they are supplementing a system that, if reworked and that value is placed into that system, could probably exist without them. But I like, what do you want them to like just double token acquisition, which is effectively saying, here, get another card for free every month? Like, is that economically viable for them? I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, the whole question of economically viable is just like so tough with them, because it's, you know, it's completely private. We have no idea. I remember the early days of the Snapshot. We used to be like, this acquisition system is crazy. It's really expensive, and we're like, they're probably making a lot of money. And there was people in the comments like, they're making no fucking money. Like, their IP licenses is like absolutely taking away from their profits. I've heard
that is probably true.
Yeah, but
for whatever it's worth, like the Marvel license is extremely expensive.
I'm sure it's non-zero.
No, like when I say like, I would not be shocked if we're talking like a third.
Yeah, but people were saying they were not profitable, and I think that they are doing well. And I think that was
I suspect that they are.
They were like, I don't remember who confirmed that. They're like, oh yeah, they're doing great. But yeah, it's just it's interesting. Again, so back to the original point, which is like the economics of it all is really hard to sort of speculate on, is because we just have no information almost on like what any of that looks like.
Yep,
they gave us a price. We pay the price. That's it.
We can only extrapolate from their actions, which seem to be centering around this same point. All of their systems have centered around the same general point with different ways of getting to that point. And they have made it gradually a little bit easier, and then sort of like generally hovered around that point specifically. And I think the main struggle they have is like making things fair for people who have nothing while still being able to sell to people who have everything. Like, I think their issue is very specifically, there are people in my situation, right? I have 60,000 tokens. I have 25 keys, right? I don't need to buy shit. I could sit on this forever, right? And that is not what they want. They want me to be spending those resources. And in order to get me to spend those resources, they need to be priced at a certain price point, right? I have to be spending. And that situation that you can get to, you can't get to it free to play necessarily, but they don't want their whales to stop spending on the game, right? Like, you've never, like, if you think about the pyramid of card game profit, it goes like, low spenders, low spenders, low spenders, low spenders, low whales. And your number one concern is do not turn that spigot off. Yeah. I think you're an outlier though, because I think you're a time whale. Like I think you're a time whale. Like the amount of time you put into the game, is certainly above average. Also, the efficacy at which you do that. So, I mean, you probably finish missions with like a higher rate, and like I don't know. That's not even true. I take full days off. I've missed missions.
Yeah, maybe you're not then. I mean, I just feel like when we think about like whales, it's hard for me to put you.
I whale, bro. I probably spent like $100 just on doing splits for my audience like this week.
Okay, now that is just that's a whole nother thing. But would you be like, I don't know if this would be uncomfortable. Would you be comfortable ballparking like how much money you spent on Marvel Snap so far?
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah, but like over 2, under 5, or over 5?
I don't know with specificity,
because I think most of us
over 2.
Yeah, I can
tell you that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are like, probably in the 4-figure range, but it's just like it's to the degree of how close are you to like a 5 figures.
I wonder. That's a horrifying thought.
Yeah. I mean, you're a content creator, so like, it's your job. So
it is a tax write-off. I have to send all my receipts to my accountant, so that's gonna be great.
Yeah, I need to get me one of them. I need to get me like an accountant. I submitted my taxes, and it told me I owed 0 taxes.
That doesn't sound
after
right.
I paid my personal. After it told me my business taxes were nothing. So if you're a CPA and you're listening to this, you're like, no, let me know, please. Let me know, because I did everything. I'm gonna get a CPA eventually, and they'll look, retroactively look over it. But I submitted my business tax. Like, you're good. You're too poor to pay taxes. I was like, great. Hey, scoreboard W. Next one is
some upside there.
Yeah. Next one is from Raymond. They say Ben a snap entry. Is there a way for SD to add new cards to Spotlight caches 1 month ? After their release, so the players can evaluate and save for them?
I think that would be cool. I can think of a couple arguments against it. The first is that would that not depress people buying it in the first place, right? Like fundamentally, Spotlight caches are, there's some FOMO aspect to it. And if you just knew they'd be coming back in the fact that we don't know their schedule, they rely on that a lot in order to make people buy stuff, right? And it was the number one thing they listed they hated about Spotlight Cache. Not Spotlight Cache, but series drops. Is that people would just not buy the stuff because they knew they'd get it later for free. And when you create a situation, because I think doing that would create a situation where the optimal play is almost always don't buy it.
Yeah.
Almost always you're not supposed to buy it. And I think that would be pretty fucking stupid if they did it. It would be consumer friendly because it would give us more information with which to make a decision. That would absolutely be consumer friendly, but it would probably make them less money than not doing it, which means there's no reason. How do you sell that to your boss, right? If I work at Second Dinner and I go hey, Glenn, in this magical scenario, Glenn is the god of Second Dinner. He's not just the design guy. He's the guy who does everything, right? I'm like, hey, Glenn, I think we should do this move that will probably cut 40% of our sales. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because people would like it.
But you could say, because it will acquire 50%. It would give us a 50%
I would have to be able to back that up. And I really don't think I could. Because everyone who always says, oh, it would be great. All of these proposals sort of fundamentally are the game should be built around people in my exact situation. Turns out there's a bunch of different people in a bunch of different situations.
Yeah. That's the most fascinating thing about Marvel Snap is I think that particularly us, but also all of you listening to this, you are in the vast minority of players. Your mindset about the game, the way you spend in the game, you are in the minority. There is this the large casual player base is they're untouched. I don't know. We just have no connection to them. I don't know who they are. I don't know how they exist. I don't know how they play the game. I don't know how they interact with it. I just know they exist because they're propping up this game.
I hang out in the official Marvel Snap Discord, and I think one sentence I see more than anything is I only really watch Cozy Gamer.
Dude, I watched a Cozy video for the first time in a few months the other night. Holy shit. I felt like I was watching a AAA production.
He's amazing.
It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. I could not believe my eyes. He's in this weatherman style.
He's pointing at a board behind him.
What the fuck? I forgot. I was actually going to make a note to mention that, but I watched one of his videos and I was just I was flabbergasted because I think honestly at this point, I think that Cozy is so good at YouTube that he's actually just limiting himself by doing Marvel Snap. Being
a snap, maybe a little bit. He's just really good.
It was just one of the best YouTube videos I've ever seen. It was crazy. So props to that guy. Anyway, next one. That resolves. Skins, this was funny. So this was a longer comment. It's picked out one sentence. Skins are probably the money makers in the longevity of the game. New players perhaps never get to catch up the longer the game runs out. So I just wanted to pick this because
that feels like something I need in context. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I also don't think the skins are the money maker of the game.
Sure, I'm with you.
Yes, but I want to clarify that because I thought that had to be before Marvel Snap came out. I was it's going to monetize on variants, yada, yada, yada. Marvel Snap monetizes on power. I'm pretty sure.
Not necessarily power, but it monetizes its cards.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be power. Look at Grandmaster, right? It doesn't got to be power. And it feels like everyone I know owns that card, and it's terrible. It doesn't have to be power, but it monetizes its cards. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, I don't know. It's conjecture, but I think the variants are, they're probably, they pale in proportion to people actually buying cards and buying Spotlight caches, keys, things like that. Next one, William. Other card games have a sort of crafting system, usually with packs or sets, dusting cards you don't want. They should introduce something that we can dust in this game boosters or something that we can craft or whatever we want for at an affordable rate, or just put in okay, so let's be real, we're just beating a dead horse. The game's not getting cheaper, period. It's not getting easier.
Not even that, but it's like I love that the proposal is always like they should take this thing that I don't want and make it things that I do want. And it's like they should take this worthless thing, this cosmetic thing, and make it real dollars. They should give me money for my boosters. They're never going to do that, man. I'm sorry.
Let me clarify an old revelation that we came to on the Snapshot specifically. The current monetization system is not a defunct system that they're trying to fix. It is a well-working oiled machine that they are further optimizing. They're not confused. There's no mistake here. Like they didn't fuck this up. This is on purpose.
I mean, I think you could argue, like, I've certainly seen like dev answers that seem to imply that they do not like how spotlight caches were received, because while they made the game cheaper, they were perceived as making the game more expensive, which isn't true, but that's just like a huge L for them, because they effectively gave you free money and you were like, fuck you. It's because like they have these downsides, right? Like the spotlight caches on the whole, I think they make the game cheaper, but you don't know when the cards are going to pop up there. They're very FOMO intensive. They are getting worse the longer cards go in there. They're more exciting, I think, arguably. But like, I think on the whole, on average, I think they made the game cheaper. But the decisions around them, they were like, oh shit, we have to claw that back, right? And so you end up with a situation where there's this level of confusion over the new system that people don't like that didn't necessarily need to be there. I do think it's a better system, but that, like, when you say it's a well-oiled machine, I don't know if it exactly is, but the number they're charging you, I think that's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. I think my core point is that it is by design, and they are further optimizing it to extract more money from you. Like, so, like, I think a lot of people, and yeah, I mean, good on you for making these suggestions. We make them as well. We talk about how could the game be cheaper, but yeah, I don't think they're super confused. I don't think they're like, oh, what system could we have that would help players acquire more cards? It's not really their goal, unfortunately.
I also think dusting is stupid and feels bad.
Oh, yeah. It did feel bad when I played Hearthstone. It did. Yeah. So one thing that did feel good about dusting, one thing, is that if you bought a card and it got nerfed, they would refund you, and they would give you the opportunity to get refunded full value. I can't stand the word value when it comes to digital card games.
Yeah, it's like fictional value.
Yeah. But they would refund you the full value, so you wouldn't have this like card that got nuked that you maybe saved up for, something like that. That was nice.
Yeah, and I like that is cool, but I think generally it's a system that people want because they're used to it and they know how to manage it. But on the whole, if I could make a card game, I would probably not put dusting in there, because the pain point of like, I have to get rid of my old cards in order to get new cards at half value just feels like it's just on the whole an unpleasant situation, despite the many ways it can be used to be friendly budget wise, right? Like there are things that you can do if you're willing to optimize heavily. Like it's just not a position you want to put your players in, I think.
I can give another example. There was a game called Duelist 2 that got re-released. So it's funny because it got re-released twice. Basically, like, I don't know if it was like the IP was like, basically two different studios like took the game and released it on Steam. And one of them released it because of the way the old code worked, they couldn't get rid of like the old dusting system, which had been in a carbon copy of Hearthstone. And like they got turbo negative reviewed. Like the game just like instantly died. So that's why another studio took that. They took that same code. They actually coded it out so you could get all the cards for free, and then they re-released it. But like people would not stand for a dusting system in the modern day, I don't think, with a new card game.
I do kind of think that that's true, where it's like, what people are asking for effectively, right? They're asking for a dusting system being added on to what we have.
Yeah, because that's better than what we got now.
Right. Like, and it would be better than what we got now. It would be better. But what you're effectively asking for then is I would like, double or triple the rate of card acquisition.
I would like to do that, right? And I think we can all be clear that that's probably not a thing.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right. Last one is from Matt. It said, question for next week. Feels like Marvel Snap's design space is getting very small, very fast. They weaken good cards just to have you buy the new card to take its place. Sitting on some points where I talked about it. I feel like they have to get more creative as to why you should buy a card versus giving it more power than other cards, i.e. new keywords or archetypes. Would love your guys' thoughts. P.S. Would love an episode where you guys explore cards from other games that might expand Marvel Snaps, since this is barely a Marvel Snap podcast anyway. This is a Marvel Snap podcast. But
Are you sure, man?
all right. You want me to reread the original, or you got it?
No, it's about the design space, right?
Yeah.
I think you could argue that Marvel Snap is a game with shallow design space. One thing that I have heard is that you really like Marvel Snap has 2 numbers on its cards, right? Magic has energy or mana, and then, toughness and power, right? And so without toughness and power, we just have like the 1 number. There is a more shallow system happening here, right? Marvel Snap is more shallow, I would say, probably by design, right? Like, this is a game that was designed to be easy to understand. Just like, oh, okay, there's only 2 numbers on the cards. They're right at the top. Then there's an ability easy to grasp, right? So that is a strength of the game. Now, that does, by definition, I think, mean that it has a shallower design space than something like Magic the Gathering, which not only has like colors, it has multiple numbers on every card. It has a billion keywords.
60 card decks as well.
There's so much more you can do in that space. Yes, totally. Do I think they're at risk of running out of design ideas? No, I don't particularly think they are. I think there's still a lot of stuff that is interesting that they can do. And I also wanted to address the they are nerfing cards to sell you the replacement thing. I just don't think that's true. Like, if they I just don't think that's it's the kind of thing that probably happens over the course of power creep, right? The only thing I can think of is they're talking about Zabu and Hope, where it's like, this was the mid-range engine, now this is the mid-range engine. But I doubt it was conceived like that. You know what I mean? I don't think they were like, we're gonna release Hope, and then it's gonna replace Zabu, and then we're gonna nuke Zabu. It's like, if you were doing that, what you would do is you would nuke Zabu and then release Hope, right? Like, you would do it in that order. That way you could make sure that people knew, hey, this is the mid-range engine, right? And instead of doing that, they nuked Zabu when Hope wasn't even on sale anymore. Like, you couldn't even buy the card anymore. And it's just like, that feels like if they were doing that, they're either really bad at it or just kind of dumb, right? And I think there's another one you could look up with, like Blob and Red Hulk. These are cards in the same role, right? Or say Eliath and Cannonball. But what's actually happening is people are taking proven strategies and adapting to them. They were like, oh, I know how good a big card is because I played a lot of Blob. Oh, I know how good Cannonball can be because I played a lot of Eliath. Right. And again, it seems like they're doing it in the wrong order a lot of the time, right? Like, it seems like what's actually happening is they are releasing strong cards. That feels like what is the core of this, is like they are releasing strong cards, and they definitely are. And I think you could argue that, like, okay, we got to worry about power creep, right? But I mean, didn't they just buff some cards to make sure they were not getting power crept? Like, didn't Crossbones just become a 4/10? Didn't they just do that? Like, I think the worry about power creep is specifically old cards become invalidated and you need all these new cards to compete. And I think that is valid, especially when there are so many good new cards coming out. But fundamentally, the issue you have is that they keep making good cards. And I don't know if that's a solvable problem, because what you're asking is effectively, stop making cards I need. That's what you're asking. And I just don't know if that's a real ask you can make.
Yeah. I also, in my opinion, but extrapolating from what Glenn said, sorry, it's getting late here. One of the biggest limiters to Marvel Snap design is that they release cards every single week, and every card needs to be a mythic. This is to call it,
or at least a rare. Yeah,
it needs to be a very impressive card. It needs to be a unique card. It needs to be something that players want to buy. And Glenn has spoken to the challenge of designing cards like that on this kind of frequency in the Marvel Snap framework. So,
and It sounds like a fucking pain in the ass. Yeah. Like imagine like you have to release a card that is eye-catching, exciting, and it has to be at least good enough that people will be like, I need to buy this. Right? It has to be at least compelling enough to do that. And I think that is very hard to do. It is just a very hard thing to do. And I think if I had one ask from them, it would be they need to do more buffs like Crossbones. They need to make sure older cards are keeping pace. That would be my one ask. Because I think that as long as they do that, we don't have to like overly worry about power creep. But like I do get comments that are like, I have collection level 9,000. I cannot play any of the decks in these videos. And it's like, I know the reason for that. It's because a lot of the decks in these videos need Cannonball or Pixie or Hope Summers or Mockingbird, right? And you didn't get all of them, right? Or even specifically build towards any of them. And then we talked about this earlier, like when they release good cards that don't get nerfed, there's this like very large volume of, I kind of have to acquire that shit, don't I? The other thing they could do that I really want them to do is do you remember when they had that high Evo cache? It's like Kyera, High Evo, and Nebula.
Yeah.
It's like, here's your starter pack for a deck.
Yeah.
They should do a cache that's like Kitty, Hope, Elsa. You know what I mean? Like they should do some shit like that.
Caches almost, I remember.
They should do Kitty, Hope, Elsa, Modok, Meek, and Proxima. Right? Like they should do that shit more, I think.
Yeah, definitely. All right. That concludes the Ben and Snap. If you want to get a question read on next week's podcast, just comment on YouTube. Let's talk about a couple deck lists, Cam. I have your Twitter pulled up. Any ones that you want to hit in particular, one that you're maybe enjoying more than the rest? All right, let's talk about Angela Kitty Soup.
Sure.
Let's pull it up. So we have Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler, Angela, Jeff, Elsa Bloodstone, Hope Summer, Shang-Chi, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, Vision, Doctor Doom, Red Hulk. Just talk to me about it from the top, the macro, what is the deck trying to do, and the micro, why you have some card choices that maybe other people that are playing this archetype, maybe they don't have the same choices you do.
So what this deck is trying to do is play 12 really good cards.
Classic mid-range.
That's pretty much
Marvel
it.
Snap.
We're trying to play 12 really good cards, and what we're doing is playing the 12 best cards that we can possibly put in a mid-range deck. We like numbers. Numbers are good. Numbers win games. And there's not really a clean way to like super solve some of the challenges this meta presents, but this is like a very competent and fine deck. It's just like a safe, solid, reasonable deck.
How do you feel about the matchup spread?
With less combo in the meta right now, I think I really need to figure out how this deck matches up into Prof X decks, into Anni decks. Those are the major things to figure out. I think it should be pretty okay into it, but there are a lot of variations of the Pixie Anni or Prof X Cannonball decks. And so figuring out like which ones it's good against, which ones it's not good against, that's difficult.
Yeah. Are there any contentious deck slots here? Maybe slots where people are differing from you in the 12th?
I think the only contention people would have is like, I'm not playing Craven and Silk. And I think I'm just right about that.
Okay. Why is that?
Like
specifically?
It's just bad. Just bad.
Numbers not good enough.
Instead of playing that, we could play Miss Marvel. She's a 4/14. I'd rather play a 4/14.
Speaking my language. All right. You mentioned Pixie Cannonball. Let me pull that one up as well. I had to hear.
I think the one you should pull up is probably the one with Lady Deathstrike in it.
Okay. That's Hood, Spider-Ham, Iceman, Nico Minoru, Pixie, Jeff, Mobius, Polaris, Sentry, Annihilus, Lady Deathstrike, Red Hulk.
For the record, Polaris, Red Guardian, either one you want, don't really care. This deck has been inexplicably good for me. Like, there's this combination of, and like good for a lot of people. Like, to be clear, this is like one of the highest win rate decks in large sample size that I've ever seen on Untapped. Like, this is a deck that there are two versions of it. One is Polaris, one is Red Guardian. Both have over 2,000 games in top 10% infinite. Both are above 58% win rate. Unprecedented at that level. Everything else around them at that level of win rate is much lower sample size. So I think we can say pretty clearly that these are real. And I think there's a couple of different reasons for that. The first is Pixie just lets you do weird, dumb stuff when you can do it. Mobius, it gets you free wins Pixie Mobius is very good. You have not lived until you've played Sentry and Nihilus same turn, right? But the second is that, like, it's not really giving up all that much compared to, like, other mid-range decks, right? Like, yeah, you're doing some Pixie Mobius stuff, but it's not, like, all that bad. And especially if you have Red Guardian to, like, bop your opponent's Angela, you can be like, actually, this is amazing, right? Like, if you bop your opponent's Angela, they basically have no competitive advantage over you. You're doing the same stuff, except you have Pixie Mob. This is a deck that also has this package of 1-drops, which you need for Pixie, that just are also good. You play a 1-drop, like, I've won games off Spider-Ham, right? Just a bunch of them. There's a lot of stuff you can hit off of Spider-Ham that's, like, incredibly relevant right now. You can just win a game off of that. You can win a game against Loki off of being a deck that has Mobius. And it's just a very competent, good mid-range deck that has a high roll that is unfair against other mid-range decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty much it. It's just good.
Yeah, seems good. I mean, it sounds like, if you look at like you said, you've looked at the data and it actually backs it up as well. So it's not just anecdotal.
I mean, in as much as you can trust untapped data, this is, I would say, a significant outlier.
Yeah. Which is a whole nother conversation, which we've had before, which is the efficacy, or sort of the efficacy of untapped data, the integrity of that data.
Right. Like, there's a lot going into that, because it's like, people are only really playing this list of it, or the list with Red Guardian instead of Polaris, and so there's not like it's less split up than other decks maybe, and so that's why it's like basically you look at that and that's like the archetype win rate rather than the deck list win rate, because like these are the only two versions of it people are playing. But yeah, this deck is real, and you're gonna see it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm excited. Like I said, I stepped away for like a week or so because some like crazy high EV Lorcana tournaments going on, and like they were regional, so they were pretty small, to be honest. Like unprecedented, like 30-40 person tournaments, 1500 EV to like even top 4 is just ridiculous. So I was pretty deep in that. 3 12-hour days, just sweating my nerd ass off at these tournaments. Not literally, by the way, I'm actually sweating because that's what happens when I play card games. I just sweat. So yeah, I'm excited. It sounds like the meta's in a good spot, and that's really fun. In White Widow, will make it very interesting. Come, when this pod releases, come tomorrow. So yeah, maybe it will fuck it all up, and we'll have a lot to talk about the week after.
I am a little worried about that. White Widow seems quite good.
Yeah. I will say that I have been thinking a lot about something we talked about in the last podcast, which was just interest in opposition. I'm not going to dive too deep into it because it's late and we've already been going for an hour. But I thought we had a really interesting conversation in regards to that, and I've been thinking about it a lot. Because I was wondering if there are some systems that we engage in they're fun. That is the fundamental paradigm, is interest in opposition, and there's actually no way out of that. Nevertheless, I digress. Don't forget, merch. We got episode 69, we got Snapshot merch.
I was about to say read Karl Marx, and you said merch.
Yeah, read Karl Marx. By the way, if you want to spend money, don't forget to submit this is my favorite X podcast, or a list of them. List of them will also be great. We'll pick the best ones for the shirt. I hope y'all like it. Like, I think it's a funny meme. I don't know how the fuck that meme started, but it is incessant at this point. Like, it is like 80% of our comments. YouTube loves us. Our engagement is through the roof, but it's all bullshit.
It's all spam. Keep spamming. We love you.
It's all spam. And while you're there, why don't you headbutt that like button and spam that one too? Number one thing you do for us is leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Video version of this on YouTube at youtube.com/@the_snapshot. If that's subscribe while you're there. Twitter, Brendan APG, Cam SMS. Cam is streaming in the evening all the time because there's Twitch drops.
It's true. I am very much streaming a lot right now. Please do stop by. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much for listening. We will see you next week.